Okay then everybody, welcome to another episode of the Leicester Lives podcast in association with our sponsor, Igloo Staffing Solutions. As always, many thanks to the sponsor for supporting this particular podcast. Now, as always, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It really does make a difference to the future of this podcast. Now, today, yet another interesting Leicester Life. I have in front of me Tim O'Sullivan. He wears various hats. He's a successful retired business person. He's also the owner of the Addies pub, the adventurous pub in Leicester, and he's also the author of what's slowly becoming, or should I say fast becoming, a pretty best-selling book, Treatings of Turpentine. Tim, thanks very much for coming along today and being a guest on the Leicester Lives podcast.
Been a pleasure, Chuggy.
Really looking forward to getting into this one today because we're going to talk about the book, but really want to start with how you grew up in Leicester, because one of the sort of strap lines to the book is living and growing up in dirt poor Leicester. So tell us a little bit about how you grew up.
Well, we was very fortunate. I can't remember it as a 2-year-old, but when we came out of hospital, you know, as a baby, we lived in a block of 5 slum houses. The one up, one down, there was known as. And they had one toilet and one tap for the whole 5 blocks. Harper's Yard off of Belgrave Gate and Leadenhall Street. And I don't remember that, but my mother spoke very much about it. But as I said in the book, she cleaned for an ex-Lord Mayoress, and her son-in-law was on the council housing list. So put 1 and 2 together. What happens next? We land a brand new council house in Mamaker Hill.
And was Mamaker Hill fairly new then, was it?
It was brand new. We were the first people into the house. My vague memories about 3.5, 3 was, you know, looking at a toilet, clean, a bathroom. Yes, it was. My mum was in her aisles, you know. We all were, you know. There we were.
And I suppose, well, like you said, it's an absolute dream. You know, you come from these slum houses, and we were discussing earlier how a lot of people these days talk about being in poverty, but that was poverty.
The slum houses were, you know, I mean, everyone in the 50s it was poor, but we were dirt poor, if you know what I mean. They managed, and one thing it took me years to realise is when I look back and think, what me, my brother and sister should have had was a father figure. And, you know, someone to encourage you. But, you know, it was never there. My mum done her best, bless her, you know. But, you know, things like sport, we had no interest in sport whatsoever. We never had the PE kit anyway, but do we, you know, out the whatever in the bin. You know, when I say the lost property. So I think looking back, he, you know, and plus I never seen him. I had a vague memory of him coming as a child, just for the afternoon, and he sent the 3 of us to the shops for cigarettes, and that were it. And then there was nothing until, you know. But then we just wiped him out. They used to say, "What does your dad do?" And I say, "He ain't got one." Easy as that. What do you mean you ain't got one? I said, "I ain't got one." So I think, you know, we just got on with it. But I didn't think at the time. But looking when I was grown up, he really, you know, owed us a lot. But that's how the Irish were in them days, you know. They worked hard, drank hard, fought hard, you know. But all the other guys, you know, they were like, not as bad as my dad, but they stayed with their families, a commitment. But my mum was brought up in an orphanage, and she was, you know, later, she couldn't decide on her own. She was institutionalised.
So what are your first memories of the Mamaker Hill estate then, Tim?
Being out on the front garden, lovely summer's day, playing with the next door neighbours, and I'd weed my pants and I took them off and pushed them through the letterbox, you know, and just carried on playing naked. You know, that would, you know, the norm.
What do you think? I asked a guest this the other day, funnily enough, about the same estate, Moacre Hill. When you go past through by the Moacre Hill estate now, how would you compare it now to how it was then?
It's a different estate. It's a multicultural estate. Nobody talks to each other. You know, I often, up until my mum passing on, I used to be up there Saturdays and Sundays, and the kids, mum used to babysit, and I used to go to the shops, and you still see the families who, you know, and their grandkids. But now it's a different world. It's like it's not just Moacre Hill, it's a lot of estates.
Would you say working class community still exists, Tim, or would you say that's a bit of a myth? Because obviously you grew up in a working class community, but people still talk about these communities, but I'm sometimes sceptical as to whether or not they exist in this modern society.
Not now. I think, you know, it was true in them days that you didn't have to lock your door, whether you're in a terrace street or, you know, a councillor's. People looked after each other. You know, somebody was ill or a guy on his own. The neighbours, well, they brought us food. They knitted us jumpers. They gave us the second-hand clothes off the kids' back. You know, I don't know whether that exists now. I'm fortunate enough I've been, you know, out of it. But I've seen my nieces and, you know, nephews sort of coming through on the. There's nothing wrong with council people. They're the best people. You know, what you'll see is what you get. And that's how, well, I don't know whether it's a dying breed, but that's how, you know, I've always looked at it.
So you're growing up on the Moacre Hill estate. You're enjoying life for a youngster. Yeah. What about school?
School, I loved it. We went to St Pat's Catholic School in Harrison Road, which we had to wear a uniform, which we got for nothing from the council. The first day's school. John was back from Ireland. He was brought up in Ireland, so I never started. John started St Pat's with me, although he's 11 months older. And he didn't want it. He was still suffering, you know, coming from the environment in West Cork, screaming and shouting. And he had a hemorrhage and rushed to hospital. And they said, "Where's your uniform?" And I said, "Oh, this is the only clothes I've got." So they summoned my mum. Oh no, it was the dinners. She asked for 2 and 6, which is about 12p. The teacher, how long you stopping? You know, a lot of the Irish kids and Poles who were in St Pat's and Spanish, they lived local, but we had to get the bus. All the Catholic kids on Moacre Hill got the bus and Stocking Farm, and it was a free bus. So, you know, it wasn't a set case that you paid your dinner money, you stop in 5 days. Some of them would go home for dinner, and when they asked for 2 and 6, I said, "No, I haven't got 2 and 6. Never even seen 2 and 6. And so she wrote a letter, and I gave it my mum when we got home, and she said, 2 and 6, Jesus Christ. That's 2 and 6 for you, 2 and 6 for John when he comes out of hospital, 2 and 6 for me, that's more than I earn in a week." So she came down the next day and said, "No, I can't afford it," and that's that. And, you know, you've got to feed them. And they had a meeting. We were the first, apparently, in Leicester. The council had a meeting with the Board of Governors, and they decided to give us free school dinners, which was great, because it was the best feed we got in the day, and the puddings. And then that's how it went. So we were all right there. We got a free school uniform, so that went on till the day I left English Martyrs.
And I was going to say, you got these happy memories from school, from St Pat's, but there was, thankfully, you weren't affected directly because of your actions, but undercurrent of sexual abuse at one particular time.
Oh, that was later on. We never seen the beach or the sea till we was probably 8 to 9. And when July fortnight was the big, Leicester used to shut down with all its factories. So they decided we closed first 2 weeks of July. It closed down. The estates had empty. The only people were left were us and the old age pensioners, you know. And so Mrs. Shepherd, which was a beautiful lady, she worked for the Women's Institute, Royal Institute for, you know, the W. And she took up our case and she was brilliant. She organised toys at Christmas. She'd come up Christmas Day in them days and with a box of toys for us, and she sorted holidays out. And what we used to do was me, John and Mary would get sent over to the coast to spend 2 weeks with the family, which was great. You know, some families, it was more fostering, just for the 2 weeks. So you'd land there, you might be in Cleethorpes or Skeggy or something, but it was one every year. It's, you know, they had to, by now you was getting a few more that were coming under the umbrella of Dirt Poor. So, but that was great. But then they had this thing in Mablethorpe, Kids Home, which was, John went the first year, and I remember saying to him, he spent 2 weeks there, Mum gave him 5 shillings. Well, and when he came back, I said, what's he like, John? I think he would be about 9 or 10. He said, he didn't say much or nothing. And then when my turn come, I went, and it was a big white building, a girls' dorm, a big building on the left, boys were on the right. You landed, they used to pick you up at Holy Bones in Leicester by the Holiday Inn, and coach loads. And then when you got there, I remember, you know, standing in with my mum and, you know, thinking, well, do I really want to go? I don't want to be away for 2 weeks, you know. And I looked round, and it was Leicester's Dirt Poor, you know, from Saffron Lane, Braunston, Northfields. You know, these kids were on the same bar as us, but they all had dads. But, and when we was there, I think, you know, there's been a lot of thing with this organised sexual abuse, but, you know, we're vulnerable children. And there was come to daddy if you're a pervert, you know what I mean? You got the girls one side, the boys and anyway, this uncle Ted, and I thought, well, you're not an uncle of mine, you know, you're not even Irish, because all my uncles and aunties are all Irish, my grandparents, that I never met, bro. But anyway, uncle, and he said to me one day, he said, right, everyone down to the beach after dinner. O'Sullivan, you can help me with the ironing. Putting the ironing away. So I thought, what have I done to deserve this? Anyway, we get in. He said, shut the door. And he said, by then I'd been circumcised for medical thing. You know, I'd had trouble weeing. And he said, you've been circumcised, haven't you? I said, yeah. He said, well, drop your trousers. I want to look at that. I told him to fuck off. Go and fuck yourself, I said. Anyway, I said, and I ran out, and he never come near me. I think I've got about 5 days left. And I was telling the other kids, I said, dude, if he ever tries to get you in that ironing cupboard, you know, tell him no. Anyway, so that was the only closest I'd ever come. But it came to me, and I had to put it in I'm not making a big issue of it. Yeah. I'd say it was rife.
Yeah.
What if I'd have said, yes, Uncle Ted, and dropped my underpants? You know, God knows. What's it got to do? Jesus, you wouldn't want to be looking at an 8-year-old kid's circumcised willy, would you?
No.
No, not a proper bloke man wouldn't.
And it's like you said, Tim, you got the people who were there for the right reasons, you know, the people who want to help the dirt poor of Leicester and provide for a holiday, and then you've got these predators who see vulnerable kids, vulnerable situations.
I'd say that were rife in a lot of... You've seen it, and I'm not going to mention big names, but these ones that were out taking the kids 12 mile out in boats.
Yeah.
You know, and then, but anyway, you know, it finally all blew up, didn't it, with glitter and,
That's
you know,
it.
but anyway,
Frank
that's a subject I tend to brush under the carpet, you know.
Yeah, just really making the point that, there were these predators out there. And thankfully, thankfully you telling him to fuck off, did the job, but there would have been other kids. You don't even want to think about it, really. Absolutely, So you plod on with school.
Yeah.
Still enjoying the school. When do your thoughts start to turn to what you're going to do after school? Because, you start to get those thoughts, 14, 15, don't you? You start.
Oh, yeah. No, well, we left St. Pat's, which was a sad day, because the kids I'd been at school with, we were going to English. They had a thing, anything left-hand side of Bournemouth Road went to Corpus Christi Senior School, and anything this side went to English Martyrs that had been built. The Murphy brothers paid for it. They were 5 brothers who'd come over from Antrim in Northern Ireland, scrap men.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, and they knew my mother, and later years I'd have not business dealings with them, but they built English Martyrs. They built St. Pat's Church. They were good to them, and so we went there, and it was a sad day really, because even at 10 and 11, you felt grown up when you looked at the other kids down there. Do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, you've lost half your friends. I lost a lot of friends that I never seen again. We're only living in Leicester. And so English, and then you start again. You're the little one. Got your head pushed down the toilet, if you're unlucky. But no, and it was growing up. I don't think, Juggy, that you looked at your first year, second year. I didn't look at a career, because I was probably just going to go. I looked at, you're useless. Not useless. You're just run of the mill.
Yeah.
When I was 11, I got a paper round, a morning paper round, which I loved. But I used to do errands prior to that, because I was sick of wearing second-hand clothes, and I got beat up for it with a guy who accused me of stealing his jumper off the line and gave me a good kicking when I was about 10. I said, no more. I said, Mum, I don't want any more of that rubbish. I'd sooner wear the same thing 3 times if it's mine. And so I started to save up and buy my own clothes. Mum had underpants, socks and things, but if I wanted special, a shirt, as I got older to 13, 14, and, I'd save up. So I got the paper round, and I used to get up every morning at 5:30, and me and Arthur Boyle, mate of my brothers, he got me the job. And we'd get on the bus at Mamaker Hill, get off at Blackbird Road, Molesbury's, do his paper rounds, and then go off to school. So I'd done that for about 2.5, 3 years. And, I really enjoyed school. The great thing about school was the dinners and the puddings. And we had you soon made a good bunch of friends again.
And would you say you had to grow up pretty fast in those days, Tim?
Yeah. When you left school, you were a young man.
Yeah.
I was drinking at 14 in the bars in town. But they're all old pubs, but to get in, get your pint of mild, for 11p. And then... it's a great life. Yeah. And then it's a school in the morning with a bit of an hangover. But school in them days and the careers, when they did, you got a career office to come and see you. Everybody that left school, there was a job waiting. It was brilliant. Most of the girls went into the hosiery, and most of the boys, all my mates, they were all second generation Irish and the odd Italian or... Their dads, brothers, uncles were in the construction game or the groundwork game, so they just followed suit. And some of the guys ended up, went into that game and ended up multi-millionaires,
Yeah.
The Irish are good at that.
Yeah.
We would, hard work, diggers and plant. So I thought, well, I don't really want to be, I'd sang all of the songs, sink that shovel, swing that pick, the Irish. I thought, no, that sounds like too much hard work, breaking my heart bone. So I thought I'd go for plastering. And that's what I left school as, apprentice plasterer.
And how long did you do that for, Tim?
I'd done that to the first winter. And what happened, I started in July, and September you had to go on 2 weeks to technical college, which was most trades, that's how the apprenticeship went. Well, when I got in September, when I got to the college, it was Newark Street, and they gave me a trowel and a hawk and said, show us what you can do. And I said, I can't do nothing with that. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I've been mixing plaster for 2.5, 3 months, which is one of the hardest games. In them days, you had to, there were no whisks.
Yeah.
It was a stick.
Yeah.
And they said, what, they've learnt you nothing? Well, it was scab labour. I said, well, no, I can knock a batch up. Anyway, I thought to myself, when the winter come, this ain't. I was on 10p an hour. Well, in between, I got a chance of a job at the Bell Hotel, which was a beautiful hotel. It used to face Lewis's in Leicester, and I was a kitchen porter. And me and the chef got on great. He loved me. He took an instant liking to me. And then we used to be 4 or 5 kitchen porters. We'd have dishwashers, and you'd have every banquet, when City was playing at home, the away team would always be at the Bell. It was that good a name. And they'd have banquets, and so these dishwasher, that was the life, to get things washed. And you ate the same food as the guests.
Yep.
So I loved it there, but I was on 10p an hour, but there was plenty of overtime. Christmas Day, So, and then when I started the apprenticeship, I was actually on £3.90 a week, which would equate to probably 9p an hour.
So did they knock down the Bell Hotel and build the Haymarket, Tim?
Yeah.
Incredible. So a lovely old hotel.
It went back years when we used to be on if we'd done a Sunday dinner shift, we'd stay down in the cellar, the staff quarters, because we'd be on again at night. It wasn't worth going home, And they had tunnels that went under. We used to go, in the tunnels. It was like, it would take you back 150, to Oliver Twist times.
Yeah.
So, and then they decided they were going to knock it down. Yeah. And I'd left there then, and I went to the plastering, 10p an hour, and I thought, how am I going to live on this? Mum wanted... my brother left school a year earlier, and he was an apprentice plasterer, painter, and he earned 10p an hour, which is £4 a week, and Mum wanted a £5 board. Well, that weren't happening. So we used to give her 3, and she'd give us £1 back. And I always say to people, my mum wants a £5, so I've got to go back and get a paper round as well as my full-time. But joking. So, I thought, no, I'm not having this. So you just went to you had a job centre for the adults and one for the kids. So I just went and I got carpet fitted, tried that. That was good, but it was working every weekend, out of hours. I just went through the lull then.
And a couple of things happened to you at a young age, Tim, when you left school. One was becoming a father.
Yes, skinheads had come into it, and we were one of the first mob to skin up. And we'd have his hair cut short, bother boots, And they had this awesome reputation that they'd beat Indians, Asians up, homosexuals, Oh, the skinhead, mention the word skinhead and everyone cringe, but we were a gang of teenagers. And anyway, the girls, they had their own gang, you know, which, when I say gang, it was a trend.
Yeah.
It kicks off in London. Whatever happens in London, it drifts up north. And it drifted up north, and it was, you know, you started, rather than the braces and the jeans and the hobnail boots, it became, they had to be Doc Martens, you know. The jeans had to be stay-pressed trousers, Ben Sherman shirt. So it was an icon, fashion icon as well. So, yeah, and, you know, one thing led together, and Helen appeared in, you know, got friendly with her, and lo and behold, next thing you know, she's pregnant, and I'm 16.
Yeah, bit of a shock.
Yeah, but there you go.
And the other thing was a few scrapes with the law at an early age as well.
Yeah, I got messing up. I used to hang around with guys that were probably 9, 10 years older than me. When you're 16, that's a massive gap, you know. And, well, it suited me. I could, you know, I could match it. I weren't there gopher or nothing. And I did get involved in some stupid arm robbery, and that went belly up. But we got away with it, which I thought. And I thought, that's me done. I'm not getting involved in this. The only thing I'd done against the law then was when me, my brother and sister was shoplifting in Lewis's. And Christmas it was, 63, 19. And I got caught stealing balloons. And I don't know what made me do it, because we thought our house was never trimmed up at Christmas, you know. We'd had a crib, and we thought we'd trim it up. And he got me, and they took me in the office, and they said, name, address, we'll tell the police, and they'll come round your house. And I says, yeah. Well, I'm really hard little Oliver Twist. Yeah, I'm ever so sorry, started crying. Oh, you poor... The women store detectives, you know. Oh, he's only 10. Anyway, said, right, you can go now. I'll never forget it. It's like that door handle there. Put my hand on it. I said, I'm free. I pulled it down. He said, let's just have a look in your pockets. Oh, well. They realised they got a professional then, virtual train setter. Big duffel coats. I'd get John's old one, and Mary'd get mine. But they were brilliant, because you used to go in, look at the toy, and just drop it in your sleeve, into your pocket. And so we were laden, you know, we used to ditch it, stash it round at the back of the Black Lion pub. The market traders had a bit of a dump there. We used to put it, and then go back out again. Yeah. And we used to take it home, take it out the wrap, and Mum said, gee, where you got all these from? So Mrs. Bird, she took a liking to us, Pete Bird's mum from St Pat's, you know. And we'd say, Mrs. Bird gave them to us, they're only second hand, she'd believe it. We could tell Mum anything, she'd believe it. And anyway, I got involved in that robbery, that went belly up. But we got away with it. He split my head, the jeweller, wide open, but we got away with it. And 2 weeks later, one of the guys, Craig Kemp, he's on remand, and they used to have a thing very common then, I'm going to TIC it, which is a take into consideration. And what you could do, you could sit down in front of the police, tell them everything you've done. If you're being charged with one crime, they'll charge you with that, and then you'll take the rest under TIC, took into consideration. But you've cleared your plate.
Right.
And, you know, you'll do your sentence, whatever, and when you come out, you're free. You know, they ain't going to come knocking. What they used to do is gate arrest you. If you don't tell them and they find out you do it, they'll wait for you to finish your bird and then wait for you to come out and nick you at the gate.
Yeah.
So he TIC'd everything, and, you know, otherwise I wouldn't have had a clue, and that was it. And then the next thing I know, my son Lee's born in April, and he's a month old, and blah, blah. And we thought, well, we'll get married. I'll get his court case out of the way. Anyway, I'll never forget it. We're up the castle, and we're all there, and there's some right hardened people there, and waiting to be sent, up court. The assizes. They used to hang you in the assizes. You only came every 3 months, and God, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And all the top police were there, saluting the big limo as it come. And we were all stood there and thought, God almighty, this looks serious. And your man gets out the car, a little fella with them big, sort of ornamental sticks. And then the judge, the assizes judge, tries to get out, trips over and falls on his face. Well, the whole place goes up in laughter.
Yeah.
Oh,
not what you need when you're going to get sentenced yourself.
So in we go, and there were 27 he sentenced. Everyone got prison.
Yeah.
He gave us, me, Kempy and the other fella, Duster, he gave us 3 years closed prison and separated. But my solicitor, Jane Horner, probation officer Jane Horner, a lovely woman, she's jumped up and said, excuse me, you can't jail O'Sullivan, he ain't even in prison age. So he went, right, Borstal for him, closed, but that was it, closed Borstal, and he'll do the full 2 years. And, well, not with that, thought, well, I'm getting on with it. And then
and just describe what Borstal life was like, because I heard this recently, somebody was sort of saying, when it comes to people who've served time in a Borstal, a lot of younger people wouldn't actually understand. They just think that was, say, like a young offenders now. But it was a pretty regimented life, wasn't it?
Oh God, no! To get to Borstal, that night I went back to Welford Road, and they knew they had to get me out because I'm only 16. You had to be 18 to be in there. So they made arrangements, shipped me down to Wormwood Scrubs, which is an allocation centre. One wing was an allocation centre for Borstal, and the other prison was Strangeways, Manchester. So what happened, all the Borstal boys would end up in the Scrubs, and they'd allocate where you're going to go, if you know what I mean. Because you don't just jail 50 Borstal boys and put them all in one place, which is a great thing they've done. They allocate, people that are going to get abused and beaten and bullied, they're not going to go up with cutthroats, So that's what the allocation was about. And we get to the Scrubs, oh, God almighty, terrified me.
Yeah.
Oh, and
just the name,
You think the Screws were guarding Alcatraz. They loved it, and anyway, a week or two there, settled in. But I knew, when I got back to Welford Road that night, I knew a lot of the prisoners, there, and they sent toothpaste down, tobacco, and because you won't get nothing until you actually went to work in prison. You won't get paid. And so that was handy. And then when I got to the Scrubs, we didn't know anybody. I went with a black fella from Northampton. We were cuffed together because he was only 17. And we ended up there, and God, they put us in a holding cell for the night. And then we got allocated, and Baggy, his name on, we ended up. So we're going to Wellingborough Borstal, but the trouble is, it's about a month, 5-week waiting list in the Scrubs. So the Scrubs hardens you up, if you know what I mean. It will harden you up. Once you've done, I think it was 6-7 weeks are done in the Scrubs. By the time you got to Borstal, you're ready for it. Yeah. But it was, at the Scrubs, it was marching. You marched everywhere. You're only spoken to if you spoke, so you're pretty well institutionalised and taught how to respect. Yeah. So you've got that, and that's what you're coming back to, Juggy. Yeah. So when you get to Borstal, and a closed Borstal is very strict, but the aim of Borstal is to try and mend you. You know, let's see what's up with you.
Yeah.
Let's see these guys that were nicking a bottle of milk, they would get, you know, because they're at the end of the tether, the judges.
Yeah.
You know, it's like compulsive shoplifters now.
Yeah.
Whereas then they say, right, here you go. There's 2 years off your life. And so when we got to Borstal, it was strict, but it was beautiful compared to the scrubs. Green grass.
Yeah.
And the screws, they were great. They wore civvies, you know, their own clothes. And from day one, they were looking to try and help you. Let's look the long term. When you leave here, we're going to try and get you a job. We're going to do the gear. He had a suit of clothes made.
Yep.
And Borstal was a pleasure. It were hard work in the sense.
Yep.
You know, the PTI, the physical training was hard. It was all circuits. But, and you bonded with your mates in Borstal. And when I came out, and there was a lot of famous people done Borstal. You know, Tom Jones for one. You know, the bonding you make with your friends. And these guys are from anywhere in the country. You know, so...
And here's a question for you, Tim. Just come to me. You said when you were growing up, you really missed that father figure, you know, that... I suppose when you go to Borstal and you've got these very strong male role models there, you know, both as officers and the other lads there, you know, I suppose in a way that's your first experience.
Yeah, because when I landed there, I had a pair of National Health glasses. I never wore them. That time I wear glasses if I tried to read something. And they were smashed to pieces. And the screw said to me, "What are these?" I said, "They're my glasses." He said, "How the hell are you going to see out of them?" I said, "Shut one eye." And he said, "No, we're having none of that." And next 2 days later, I'm took down into Wellingborough town and with a screw, and opticians, boss, measured up, we'll send them to the Borstal. And there were me with my brand new, and I thought, what a lovely, you know, he didn't have to. He went out of his way to make sure I can. So, you bang on there.
Yeah, proper people, you know.
Yeah.
So when you come out of Borstal, you start to put maybe criminal life behind you?
Oh, it went. It had already gone. But I was fortunate enough I'd started with a fridge firm, and they delivered, chest freezers were coming the big thing in the 70s. And what you done, you bought the freezer on credit, and you got £50 worth of frozen food. Well, I got on the van job, driver's mate, and we used to deliver the food. And then I said to the boss, "Is there any chance I can learn how to repair these?" And anyway, cut a long story short, 2 years, I can repair domestics. I seen a job come up for semi-commercial, which is lines made of Wolves Ice Cream. They had their own refrigeration company. I applied and got that job. And cut a long story short, by the 1978, I'm a qualified refrigeration engineer. So, and I'm doing well on this firm, you know, because if you sold any new equipment, you got a commission. So I was selling the equipment. I'd dealt a lot with the Asians. They were just starting to come over. And I got, because you got in anywhere that sold ice cream, it would be out of one of their fridges. So all the shopkeepers, everything, you know, would have a Walls or Lions fridge in it, selling ice cream. So you could go into any shop and say, "Hello, Total Refrigeration. I'm just here to give your fridge a quick service." And that's how, you know, we got to know them. And then if they were after a new plant, I'd be straight there. And so I was earning great commission.
Yeah.
You know, and they were saying that we used to have meetings every year, all the engineers. "Surely there's another O'Sullivan among you. You know, he's earned this commission." You know, to boost up sales.
Yeah.
So everything was great until I started drinking every the weekends. Me and the boys. Pam I'd met Pam by then, you know the story with the court case and with Lee, the child. When I come out of Borstal, she'd be with somebody else and so and so. So I had to take her to court to get access to see my son. And the court gave me, her solicitor slagged me off, painted a right black picture of me, ruthless. And they gave me an hour a month at a mum and dad's. So I went 1, 2, 3 months, and I just sat there. They'd be drinking tea and, chatting with the racing on. Anyway, I stood here, and in the end, the guy she was with used to be a mate of mine, but anyway, in the end, I levelled him in the flat and I just played into her hands. Back to the courts. But anyway, they applied for adoption, and I thought, well, I'll just start my life afresh.
Yeah. Adopt
him, God knows where I'm going. But anyway, that went down there. Then I met Pam, and that was the thing. And she worked Saturdays, and I'd go on the drink. I'd work out all week and go on the drink Saturdays. Most of the boys did round town, drinking clubs. Well, couldn't get enough of the stuff. And anyway, we'd kick off at night, and we kicked off at night across the road there. And anyway, got me and a Dublin fella got 6 months. I got 6 months. He got 18. He was on a suspended sentence, Mick Malone. Yeah, so out with that prison again. But it was a joke, by now, I mean. It was a Stafford prison. And so I went and done that. I swore then, that's it. The drinking, the rearing up and that with that. And I never looked back, touch wood. When I come out, I got another job, refrigeration engineer for Indians. I fell out with them about 6 months later. They stopped. My sister died. Mary, that's another story. I don't think we'll have time to.
No, it's a good story in the book, though. Really interesting story.
I decided to set myself in business. So I went to the TSB as the manager of the Bank of Ireland called it in later years. Gee, what are you doing with that toy soldier bank? You'll get nowhere, and he were right. But anyway, I changed to the Bank of Ireland, and I set my company up, and it was hard work for the first 2, 3 years. Yeah. Your name, it's dead easy to get a bad name. It's very hard to get a good name. Yeah. But with my predecessor works with the Asians, and helping them out when they first landed, that come back with dividends. These guys were getting on the feet. They were opening 1 shop, 2 shops. Get Tim, the fridge waller. I say, I am here, fridge waller Tim. And so we slowly, built it up and touched wood. That went on for 30 odd years.
Yeah. And got bigger all the time, just continually sort of organically grew, yeah?
Yeah. Hard work and a couple of pints at night after work, job done. Yeah, and as I said, in life, I was still on the tools, because we'd have four vans out, 4 engineers and me. But I mean, I weren't doing the running. I'd take if there was a quote to be done and a repair, I'd take that. I could do the quote. But I had a great man, Kevin, in this early 80s, the youth employment got in touch, said he got anything going. Got a lad here, keen as anything. His basics on domestics. And I said, well, why did he leave that company? He said they sacked him for stealing a thermostat and took him to court. And I thought, him and his manager, some woman wanted a job doing later, after 6:30, and the manager said, yeah, you go on that. And they shared. Anyway, they got caught. The company took them to court for the thermostat. And she said to me, he's offering to work for a week for nothing. And I thought, well, anybody that's willing to do that's worth a look. And I just took an Asian guy on, Patel. Anyway, I said, yeah, bring him along. And God almighty, it was like just what you wanted. Keen, he was like me 10 years earlier. So, touch wood, took Kev on, never looked back. He ended up with, I sold it to him at a very good discount.
Yeah.
And touch wood, it's still there, you know.
So fast forward, Tim, you end up in the pub game, so something completely different.
Yeah. Well, I drank in the Addies Bar, as it's known now. You know, that was, I lived round the corner, and that was, it was a great pub because all the boys are mainly self-employed or work for, you know, decent companies, but everyone's got money in there. When I was in the town, you wouldn't dare. I used to say to a barman, pay for a drink, which would be 50p, pint of lager, with a fiver, and I'd say, don't you dare wave that change, or a tenner, wave my change around. And if you were one of the lads, and he'd say, and here's your change, Tim, shout it out. £4, £5, £10. Well, that were it. Every nipper in the pub's ears would be up.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, gee, Tim, you couldn't get us an old pint. Oh, for God's no.
Yeah.
So, I drank in this pub anyway after work, and my brother and Bogside Tom, and great. And then as we're getting bigger, the offices are coming too big for the house, so we move into the garage, convert that, too big for that. So I looked for premises, and next to the Addies there was premises. So I moved in there 5 years, but I was falling out with the landlords over. There were Orthodox Jews, no offence to them, weren't that? But they lived in London. They wouldn't spend a penny on my life. I converted it into offices, my unit. Anyway, the pub was up for sale. And it had got an ex-gymnasium built into it. It used to be a bottle store. And one of the tenants had made a gym. So I thought that would be ideal for mine. So I bought the pub. It was wrecked. The ceilings were caved in with acrote holding them up. But it was still open, believe it or not. You know, if the electric board come and do a meter, they said, we've got to condemn this electric. But anyway, cut along. We bought it, and I slowly started to do it up, room by room, and the 3-bedroom apartment upstairs. And I moved TS into it, which was ideal. And I put its own water, its own electric in. So it was independent of the pub, the offices. And that's how, you know, I had partners who I went in with, but mainly I didn't want to run a pub. I was too involved with TS.
Yeah.
And anyway, I had to get rid of them. And I took it over and there we go.
And is it a decision you've ever come to regret, or have you always been happy sort of owning the Addies?
No, I've never regretted it. I've loved it. So if I didn't own it, I'd still be going down for a couple of pints at night. And some of my, you know, and the great thing is now, it's we bury us own. We have parties. We have, you know, there's guys that I remember coming in 2 and 3 years of age. You know, we're doing their kids first, their grandkids' first birthdays, you know. And, you know, I've buried a lot of people there. And it's handy because if they haven't got anything to bury them with, I'll step in.
Yeah.
They can have the pub for nothing. We'll do a good deal on. We don't do the food now with COVID because all the rules have changed. But we would, you know, make sure that they got a decent send-off.
And there's a nice parallel there, to be honest, Tim, with, you know, how you grew up and, you know, you were being helped out by other people, you know, you said with the clothes and the like, you know, and you sort of fast forward now and you're helping other people, and it sort of goes circular to what we said about working class community, you know.
Yeah, well, it comes natural.
Yeah. What's your opinion, should I say, Tim, about the losses of pubs, you know, and not just in Leicester, right the way across the country, because there aren't many pubs like that anymore, are there?
No. the great thing about the Addies is I own it. There's no rent. And with the Leicester City Council, are very good in the sense of small businesses. We don't pay rates. So we don't need to make this, that. Our prices are very low compared to the pub down the road, you know. But the other pubs, they had no chance. I was dealing with every pub in the refrigeration. I mean, if a guy took a pub over, or a lady took a bar over, and it was, say, taking 10 grand or 5 grand a week, and she turned it round to 25, her rent would go from 500 to 15. The breweries, you know, greed.
Ridiculous.
That's what's done them.
Yeah.
Not the government, the breweries.
Yeah. Heard that before, actually.
Yeah.
This year. So when did the idea of the book first come along then, Tim?
That came along when I was on a holiday. I'm probably very privileged that when I'm away or at a funeral, a family party, right, Pam's got a great knack, you know, if there's no crack going, she'll say, Timmy, tell them about this. Well, there you go. And then next thing you know, you're holding court. And this is like we've done cruises and after a couple of nights you get couples and then they hunt you down because they want to be in your company, which I don't mind. But, you know, if you've got something to offer back, I'm not listening to myself all night, you know. And I just thought, these people are so interested in these stories. And I could tell when I've told certain stories, I mean, not to do with the book. My life's been a very interesting and thingy that sometimes to think, he's lying. Well, you think what you want. I know I'm telling the truth. Because it's so extraordinary, you know, compared to their life. And then Ryan got me an Irish-American girl, Katie. Katie, her maiden name's O'Driscoll, which is a big Cork name, you know, Irish name. And she looked at the book, read it, and said, oh, God, you know, perhaps they always say there's a book in everyone. But that might be true, but get it written down. If it's a flop, I didn't write the book to make money.
No.
On it. I'm quite content with my life. I don't want to be mega rich. I don't want people. I don't want to have to worry about my grandkids getting kidnapped for ransoms and stuff like that. You know, I can leave my house. I can either walk to the bar in 5 minutes, and I can come out when I want. I ain't got to, you know. Yeah. These famous. I know a lot of famous people. You know, a pleasure, but some of them, they can't go nowhere because they're hounded. So I didn't want that, but I thought, you know, I'd be a fool not to put this down and the dictaphone. I'm no good at writing, but the feedback we was getting from the book, and they woke me up and said, you don't realise what a life and a story you've got to tell. I'm thinking, hang on, you got the right fella here. and that's how it transpired.
And for those of you who haven't read the book, I mean, it's an absolutely brilliant read. And I said to you earlier, Tim, and I know you don't want to hear too many sort of plaudits and all the rest of it, but there's two things come across on it, you know. One is that it's truthful, and the other one is that it's genuine, you know, and that really comes across with the writing, because you can look at so much stuff online these days, you can read so many books, and everything's filtered, everything's manufactured, and you're not actually seeing the truth, you're not seeing the reality, but that book just screams reality at you.
Oh, thank you very much, Dougie. I'll take that as a compliment.
So, what does the future hold in store for you then, Tim?
Well, the book's took over, a fair bit. You know, it's going, you know, it's selling well in America and Ireland, UK. And now Ryan's pushed it out to the rest of the world, Australia, Canada, South Africa, where we're getting report. They're struggling to get it over there. There's something about Amazon and printing, but I think I'll see this through. I've done this podcast. As I said, I've done 2 radio interviews in New York, and I mean, I'm so glad. I want to take a bit of the work now because it keeps me interested. The Addies Bar, I've got a top man in there and top staff. I've got good accountants, good solicitors. So that's the side. I like a bit of a challenge, not mega, but and then we're hoping to put a block of flats up on the car park. So that'll, tick along.
Yeah.
But my kids, God spare, and my grandkids, we see them as much as we can, in France and in Essex. I'm very lucky, and thank you, God. I'm quite content when you think of the life, some people.
And final question, Tim. Obviously, you've had a very full and varied life. So if I were just to ask you for the high point and the low point, I know it's difficult to pinpoint one of each, but start with the high point. What would you say, of all the things you've achieved, what gives you the most pride?
I think meeting Pam and marrying her, plus walking my daughter down the aisle instead of carrying family coffins in St Patrick's. Having the first dance with Kelly when she won Rosa Trulli, the regional one in the Holiday Inn, and down points. It's got to go back to, being sentenced to prison and Borstal, I think. Yeah. That is huge, because I can tell you this, I've come across some tough men in my life, and I've got to, if anything, I'd like to tell the youngsters, once you get sentenced to prison or Borstal or whatever, your life stops there. You might be this figure that goes through the sentence, but your life stops there. Absolutely. And it starts the day you get released, because that's it. Your decisions are all taken from you. Yeah. So that's one thing I'd say on anybody going into a criminal career, which I never did. Yeah. I got caught shoplifting at 10 and I failed. So I'm glad at that, really. I'd sooner it had gone that way. But no, I've been very fortunate, and I do appreciate it. But as I said, that's the story of the book. The story's really about my sister Mary Bridget, John, which I'd be here for another 2 hours. Yeah. And if I had to put, it's all as best as I could put into the book. That's why people have said to me, oh, you didn't mention me in the book. I said, well, the reason that being, because it's about me, my family. That's what, it's the front cover. That's the only photograph we have of the 4 of us together. So, that's it, really.
Yeah. Interesting you say that about the photo, because when I went back to the book last night, just to sort of refamiliarise myself, because I think Ryan sent it to me sort of October last year, and I was thinking it's the only photo in there, and that explains why that's the case. You sometimes get a few photos in the middle, and I thought, there's only the one photo on the cover, so that's the one existing photo.
Of the family. Yeah. And there's never a photo of my father. And if you've got the hardback with all the photos in, there's plenty of photographs, but if you could see that the book was originally for the family. And anybody that's looking, future generations of O'Sullivans can see this is where it all started. Irish immigrants. Yeah.
Where can we get the book from, Tim?
Amazon. Amazon. There's a bit of a thing about the hard copy. They're saying it's sold out or unavailable, but if you go to other options, you can get it. And loads of people have, got the hard copy. But I think if well, I just hope everybody and enjoys reading it, which I know we've had the comments.
So we'll look for Amazon for the book there, Tim, and hopefully many more sales to come.
Well, hopefully, yes.
Well, thanks very much for coming in today, Tim. It's been an absolute pleasure. Some fascinating stories there. And like you said, we've only really touched upon it because there's a whole lot more in that book. So I implore anybody who's watching or listening to this podcast, get onto Amazon, get it ordered, because you will not regret it. Tim, thanks very much for coming in.
And it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
No problem at all.